Okay, part 2 of the 5 scariest, most haunting things that has happened to me as a demonologist. We left part 1, bringing us to my case of demonic possession. It was a case that had no Ouija board, no occult ties, no anything like that. Nothing happened in the house like that. And yet, the people found themselves being harassed, oppressed, physically, emotionally, mentally tormented by the demonic. I myself was physically assaulted on more than one occasion at this house, and this case came to me because the people who this family went to for help previously did such a bad job. They not only failed to help the family, but they brought something in far worse. Far worse than what they had there. It started out with the child, the youngest child, a son. When he was young, he experienced 3 spirits, 3 women would come out from underneath his bed and chant. They would chant this rhythm to him, and they wouldn't let him leave. The room would go icy cold, and one day, one of them made physical contact with him, and it burnt him. I still have a picture of the burn mark somewhere, but the physical contact that happens can leave profound effects on us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But sometimes the physical harm can seem like the worst, and on this case it left a very big burn mark on his back, the size of a hand. So, because of this, the family reached out and they got hold of a so-called paranormal team. I will not mention names. These people said that they could bless the house. They said that they could remove the spirits. They said that they could help. They rigged the house with recording equipment, both visual and audio. The house almost was like a giant booby trap. Wires everywhere, cameras everywhere, places the family weren't allowed to go. It was chaos. The good news is that whatever those people did, whatever they did to get rid of the spirit, it worked. Those spirits did not come back. However, what they brought in was much worse. These were not human spirits, these were not lost souls, they were not souls in purgatory, they were not souls that were trapped. This kind of spirit was angelic in origin, demonic in nature, and from hell. This spirit was dark in form. When it manifested, it was dark. It manifested as clouds, orbs, giant 7 feet tall almost humanoid black figures, which one evening when I was live on TikTok, I believe it was, this thing formed, and I went into a state of what we call religious resistance, and got rid of it. But that was live, with many people as a witness. It's not often that things will manifest, even in cases like this family had, that things will manifest where multiple people see them. To have a haunting where multiple people have seen things is even rarer than a haunting itself. Now, what you see in the films tends to be glorified. It glorifies not God, not the power of God, not the love of the church, not the charity of God's will to free people. It doesn't focus on that. It focuses on the devil. And our focus on the devil has pulled people away from God. And in this house was much like that movie, well, those movies. Things moved on their own accord. Faces appeared in windows. Doors opened and closed at will. People appeared, waved and left. Lights would circle around the room. Black dogs would form in the middle of the night, growling. And the black figure itself. People were pushed, people were burned, people were cut, people were levitated. The whole family, in the end, witnessed this thing. The message that I received from the family once this other so-called paranormal investigative thing were in was that this team had come in. They had seemingly failed because when they left, things carried on, but they got worse. And the father started to see lights in the bedroom. And one night these lights appeared like Christmas lights on the wall. No source of origin, there's nowhere it came from, to the naked eye anyway. And these lights moved down the wall, or across the wall and down to this chair, this baby high chair that was dismantled. And it started to rock from side to side, this dismantled high chair. So he got in contact with me and he said that he had seen also a black figure around the house. People, let me tell you, that black figure wasn't just out the corner of his eye. This wasn't a figment of his imagination. This wasn't dreams. This wasn't someone making it up. When that man came under possession, and his eyes met the eyes of this black form that had manifested on the stairs, there was no human on the planet which could have stopped that man. And the only reason that whilst under possession, showing incredible strength, that I was able to stop him was with the word of God. It wasn't me that stopped him, it was the presence of the word of God being spoken. This black form started out as just being seen around the house, loitering, sometimes walking from one room to another. So I went there, went to the house and had a look around. I took some pictures, did some research. Eventually, I went to stay at the house overnight, and the feeling in that house when it reaches midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock is so oppressive, was so oppressive, so heavy, that one night I couldn't take. I mean, I hadn't long started out. I was still finding God at that point, and I was still very much on a journey, which of course doesn't finish until we return to dust, but I had next to no idea that I didn't know anything, and at that point I thought I knew what it was all about. And there was one night where my phone wouldn't charge, my torches were dying, my phone was heating up, and I called it quits. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had all the lights on. In the end, I did not want to be in the dark in that place, and even though I had been through all these horrible things, these demonic, malevolent, horrible spirits when I was younger and in other places, which we'll get into later, that house was so oppressive, I couldn't take it anymore, and I left. I turned off the kitchen light, gathered all my stuff, turned off the dining room light, which was where I was, turned on the hallway light, went out to the hallway, opened up the door to get some light in, and turned off the hallway light. Now, when I turned off the light, the stairs were still pitch black, as it was the middle of the night, and out of the darkness, a woman's voice said, "Don't go," as if she was scared for me to leave. And let me tell you, the burn marks that were left on the bottom of my shoe from moving out of that house so quick. The feeling you get when you're in the presence of the unknown is unlike anything you will ever experience. And this is the reason that many so-called investigators now don't make it. It's because they have no armor, they have no protection, they have nothing, and it starts to interfere with their personal life and it scares them away. They have nowhere to. Where does a paranormal investigator turn when he comes across something that he cannot control? He doesn't know. But if you're a real paranormal investigator, if you're in it for the right reasons, if your heart is in it, if you want to help people, you don't make money from it, you're not out to glorify yourself, and you have the correct protection, you go the right ways about it, there is nothing that you will come across in this life that you will not be able to face, even the demonic. Now, of course, facing the demonic is not our problem. It's not what we do. But when we go to some places like this house, it's going to come at you. It's going to try to hurt you. It's going to try and scare you. It's going to manifest. It's going to happen, and you have to be prepared for that. And at that time, when that voice in the darkness said, "Don't go," I was not prepared for it. I thought I was. And 6 months later, I thought I knew a lot more than I knew back then. 6 months later, I thought I knew more than I knew back then. It goes on, and you always think you know so much. And time passes, and you sit back and you think, I didn't know all that much back then. Knowledge and faith, people. Faith in God, faith in Christ our Mother, the angels, heaven, the saints, the church. The real church, not this fake thing that was broadcast out on the news daily, not all these bad things that are happening in this house where people dress funny and say funny things. The real church, the church that is about bringing people to a relationship with Christ, the church that is about saving souls, about teaching the love of God, the good news. That church, the church that was created, that was brought to life by Christ, the man who defeated the devil and death, the man that reopened the gates of heaven in death. He defeated death in death. That church. And back then I hadn't. I had faith, I didn't have knowledge. I don't know what I had faith in, and I didn't know how to use it. I thought I did, but I didn't. And speaking of paranormal investigators that have faith, I found my faith through Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they taught me so much. And I don't think I wouldn't have my faith, and I wouldn't have been able to experience the most incredible things, not just with the paranormal investigations, just not with demonology, but with the Holy Spirit, with the church, with my faith, finding something so strong, something so unfathomable, something so incredible. So if you want good people to learn from, of course they've passed on now, but there's so much of their knowledge out there. And I used to watch a lot of them, and learn from their classes when this case was brought to me. When the case was first brought to me and I went back home after going out to the house a few times, this will be another thing that happened to me from this case, actually, so it kind of ties in. This is both 3 and 4, and we'll give some bonus ones at the end. I was led in bed, and I was fast asleep, and a presence woke me. And my partner was sleeping next to me. She was fast asleep, but this presence in the room woke me, and there was a shadow on the door, on the back of the bedroom door, of this person with their head off to the side. And 2 days before, my partner had said in her sleep that there was a woman here who had broken her neck. And then 2 days later, this was happening to me. So I woke up, and the shadow was there, the head was off to the side, and it moved towards me. And what I can only describe as oppressing, sucking the life out of me. This thing began to share or pour its darkness onto me. This pressure moved onto the bed and over my legs, and started to travel on my legs. And I remembered this thing that Ed Warren had said when he was in the Amityville house, and another couple of times afterwards. But he had this great heaviness set upon him, and his face went all hot, and the air around him went really hot, and it was difficult to breathe, like having a hot towel over my face, he said. And I remember him saying the only way that he got out of it was religious resistance. And he said, I made a sign of the cross as big as I could, and I started to say, in the name of Jesus Christ and of the blood of Christ, leave this place, leave me alone, go back to wherever you came from, in the name of Jesus Christ, go away. And it worked, and he felt this pressure come off him, and so did I. I was scared, of course, but bravery isn't about not being scared, it's about being scared to do it, but you do it anyway. So that happened, and that was to do with this case. I believe it was in conjunction with this case. So, upon the many nights after that I spent at the house, we caught so much evidence in that house. We set the cameras up, not like the other team did. We set them up properly, and we caught orbs. We caught a portal opening, and I know it was a portal because the bedroom door was shut and this portal opened on the wall, and the door opened, and the man of the house's wife came into the room. Now when the door opened, it opened past the light, so the light or the portal was behind the door. Now if it had been because light was coming in through the window, causing that light or portal on the wall, then the door opening would have cut that light off, and there hence ceasing the light or the portal to be on the wall. However, when the door opened, the light or the portal continued. It got bigger, it got smaller, it changed in shape also. We got 2 balls of light dancing with each other over the dining room table. Now, these lights were not on the table, they were not on the wall, they were not on something that was on the table. These lights weren't being projected. They were just 2 lights. 2 spirits dancing, and all of this on camera. One of the most significant finds, which got both the first and the second exorcism. The second one had to be approved. The first one was a minor exorcism. I had set up various religious artifacts around the house, crosses, crucifixes and things like that. In the kitchen was a camera, because a lot of the activity was in the kitchen. Doors would open and close, drawers would open and close, the cutlery would get shuffled around, things like that. And so I put a camera in the kitchen, and this massive shadow figure, it was perfect, I've still got it on my phone. It manifested in the kitchen, set the camera off, moved toward the crucifix, moved back away from the crucifix, and then ran. Or not ran, but it kind of flew, if you will, out the door, as if it was afraid of the crucifix. Now, a lot of the things that I have got have been from churches, have been given or have been bought from churches that churches have used for many years, and either the church is closed down or whatever it was. I managed to get hold of them, and this crucifix was old, it was cast iron, and it was from a church that unfortunately closed down. And I still have that video on my phone, and it is one of the single best pieces of evidence that I have caught. One of, not the best, maybe in conjunction with a few others, but this thing, we knew that it wasn't a shadow of someone because it was in front of the cupboards. It was as tall as the cupboards were, but it was in front of the cupboards. This wasn't a shadow being projected onto something. This was a shadow that was standing separate from the objects in the room. It wasn't cast over anything. It was a humanoid shadow figure. And I had said to the family when I reviewed the footage, I had warned them that now we had caught it, that things may get worse. It did not intend for itself to be caught, but it did. And that night, the family dog was on the right side of the bedroom, the master bedroom. The father and mother were in bed, and he said that he had heard what he thought was his dog moving about. And he looked down and his dog was stationary, it was still. Can't remember if it was asleep or awake, but it was still. And he looked back over, and there was this, what sounded like a cat. It started off as a cat. It sounded like a cat. And it grew from this kind of moaning that the cats do to this deep guttural sound, a growling sound. And this black dog figure was then seen leaving the room, and the family dog was still in the bedroom. Also, some other things that happened in that master bedroom. The father was pushed off the bed by an invisible force. I was pushed out of the bedroom, which was captured on 2 separate cameras. One camera captured me being pushed, and the other camera from the other angle caught the orb going across the room into my chest and pushing me out of the door. And the wall outside that room is also where that rather large human-shaped 7 feet tall thing happened. 2 children were seen at the end of the bed. They looked at each other, looked at the man of the house, who was just staring down at amazement, and looked back at each other. They gave each other something and disappeared. He was held down on his bed by an invisible force. Black figures were seen walking in and out of there. This entity was very, very clever. It did things that made me second guess myself. The first time round, it made me second guess myself. The second time round, I knew what was happening. And I say the first and the second time round because the first time, it left. It left, but the family didn't fill that void with the love and light of Christ. And it came back. It came back because of a Ouija board that was done in the house. But that's the next part of the story. when this thing left the first time, there was a very, very holy and pious man, a well-loved man in the community, a priest, a brother, and he's no longer with us. He's left and gone to another church, unfortunately, but he performed the first exorcism, the minor exorcism, and it left. This thing did in fact leave, and all of that stuff that I'd caught on camera before was saved. Still have it on the devices now, but the second time round, things escalated very, very quickly, and it was because of this Ouija board that had been done in the house, and since then it even affected the friends of the family in their own homes quite horribly. Now, when this second exorcism was done, when it was performed, I could see psychically, clairvoyantly, however you want to put it, this thing, and it really, really screamed, and it shook the house. Psychically, the house was shaking so much when these priests were going room to room. It was truly incredible to witness. That video that I'd said that I'd caught there was about the shadow person in the kitchen. Was one of two crucial pieces of evidence that I presented to the church, the diocese, in a meeting that happened on New Year's Eve on a boat during some seriously stormy weather. It was Halloween. Oh no, yeah, it was Halloween. Did I just say Halloween or did I say New Year's Eve? I meant Halloween either way. It was Halloween night, and me and the father and the son, who had both been affected this time round, were on this boat going over to the diocese, and the waters were so choppy you almost had to seatbelt yourself into the boat because it was side to side like a theme park ride. It was incredible. Stormy night, stormy waters, taking this family to go and see an exorcist and a priest, a deacon, about an exorcism for their home that was being haunted. Real textbook kind of movie stuff, like I was saying before. When I presented that video to the exorcist, to the priest, to the diocese, you could see just by their reaction that they were going to come and do the exorcism. The second crucial bit of evidence was these scratches and burn marks that were left on two of his children, and that, along with the other video, was what brought that exorcism forward. And they tend to move pretty quickly when exorcisms are sanctioned by the church. And exorcists can be appointed case by case, parish by parish, wherever it's needed. An exorcist can be appointed in a parish, for a parish or a diocese. Every diocese has an exorcist, and if it doesn't, it automatically goes back to the bishop. The bishop then becomes the exorcist for the diocese, and not many bishops would like that job. So yeah, this particular exorcist is not known to the public apart from those who have worked with him, which coincidentally, through this journey of faith and the good news of Christ and the church, I have met three people who worked with the with the previous exorcist before he was asked to lay down, and another exorcist was appointed. Very strange. The roads we think we're on for the wrong reasons, the roads we think we're on for the right reasons, and we know where it's going. And things like that happen, you know. It's rather incredible, the things, the people, the places that you meet or go to on this journey of life. Now, at the end of the exorcism, everybody, simultaneously, everybody felt the house, the oppression lift simultaneously. As soon as the prayers that were being read got to the part of at the foot of the cross, flee to the foot of the cross, it lifted. And the feeling, and having the incredible privilege to be able to see God's love and light fill that house, is on a whole nother level. Not money, not sex, not drugs, not power could come close to the incredible feeling and experience of seeing and feeling God's love. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what an exorcism is about. Exorcism is not about the demonic. It is not about what's happening. It is about it's about God having the opportunity through His bride, the church, to come down in charity, in love, just complete love through exorcism, and relieve people of the suffering, the oppression. All the people that are going to hear this, some people, it may not get to many people, it may only affect one person, it may help one person, but these are stories to pass on. These are stories not based on the paranormal, not based on the demonic, not based on anything other than the love of God. Because if we think the original exorcist was Christ, Christ built the church that is leading the way in religion today, and there is so much evidence pointing towards it. And yet, even as something as powerful and glorious as an exorcism, people just pass it off. And they get into things for the wrong reasons. So let that also be a lesson to people if you're thinking about going down this road. Like our host, Gavin. do it the right way, as Gavin has, as I have, and as we'll continue to do. Gavin, our host here on this podcast, thinks that I am the one teaching him, but really, he's the one that's helping me. And that kind of help doesn't come from many people these days. So when you find that kind of help, when you find that kind of friendship, that trust, that relationship, that love, take a step back and evaluate where your needs, where your order of life, your order of importance with things is, and make sure that you keep that close. Number 5. We'll finish this with, I think I've been talking long enough. If anyone's still here, it's a miracle. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. So, some bonus bits, let's say. Number 5 will be a collection of things. So, number 1 of number 5, let's say. I was with a woman many years ago, and I moved into her place, and I hadn't even finished unpacking my bag. It was a sports bag, so it's a big bag, and it was filled with stuff. It was very heavy, and it was in the hallway, and we went to bed, and she woke me up in hysterics. And she just kept saying, look. And I looked at the foot of the bed, and my bag, my heavy sports bag that was filled with my stuff, was being dragged from the hallway into the bedroom, and it stopped at the end of the bed. And me and her were the only 2 people in that place. And a lot of places, I'm not one of those people everywhere is haunted, and everywhere I've been I've seen stuff, because I haven't. Sometimes you feel things, you don't always see things. But a lot of different places I've been to, I've visited, things like that have happened. And like this place, it's called the White Hart, H-A-R-T, Hart, in a place called Overton in England. And they have what they call the stables out the back, and they're old animal stables. I think they were horse stables that they converted into rooms quite magnificently, if you ask me. They done really well there. And me being me, saw that the place was old and asked about. Sure enough, the stories started coming out. Everywhere has stories, and if you know where to look, who to ask, those stories will come out. The story of this old woman who had been seen sitting in front of a mirror in one of the bedrooms, combing her hair. That same woman was seen, her outline was seen pressing down on this bed that had been previously freshly made. And they walked in, and there was just this invisible body lying down on the bed. They could see the impressions on the bed. Things like that. And one evening I said, would you mind if we came back and had a look around, maybe investigated a bit, see if we could get anything? And they had said yes. So that night we kind of settled down later on, and I was really excited to be able to go back to that place. There were so many stories of the same thing from so many different people who had worked there and who had been there. And I was about to fall asleep. I picked up the TV controller. The TV was at the end of the bed, and went to turn off the TV. And in the time it took me to look from the TV to the controller back to the TV, this semi-translucent woman was floating at the end of the bed. Clear as day. Clear as day. She even gave me time to focus my eyes onto her. I was looking directly at her, and she was looking directly at me. I could see the clothes that she was wearing, the style of her hair, and in the blink of an eye she rushed up the bed, through me, as in went through me, and through the wall, and I assume she left. When she went through me, when she passed through me, I experienced this thing that I had only ever experienced one other time, which was when I died and experienced the incredible restfulness, peace and love of heaven. And I experienced it again when she passed through me. And I kind of took that as I'm at peace, I'm doing, I'm fine, I don't need investigating. So I didn't go back to that place and investigate. It didn't happen. I wanted to, but it didn't happen. I knew it wasn't the right thing to do. Another case that I had, I didn't manage to go to, but it came to me and my partner. I very strongly to believe the case to be an incubus case. An incubus, for those of you who don't know, is a demon that attacks the female sexually, physically, mentally. It's an extremely violent, extremely dark entity. I won't go into the ins and outs of it, but I'll highlight some of the worst things that happened on that case, or that drew me to that case. The woman was levitated up to the ceiling and then thrown back down to the bed, where she proceeded to bounce off the bed and hit the floor. She was raped by an invisible force. She was... the covers were levitated off her and then shredded into a million pieces. Within a second or two, they were shredded in front of her, and then this voice out of nowhere just said, "Brace yourself," and then it attacked her. And she was rendered unconscious, and then she was raped. She foresaw her own attack come on, and when it happened, she tried to stop it, and it broke her back. The nurses, the doctors that helped her at home, 3 of them died. I think it was 3. 3 of them died from brain cancer. If anyone knows anything about cancer, you may know that brain cancer is extremely rare. Now, 3 separate people who had been in and at that house helping that woman died of it. A priest went into the house when she was younger to exorcise the house, and in front of the entire family was levitated by the throat. workmen had come in over the years to do work in the house, and the family had come back, and the workmen had left so fast because of things that they had seen. They didn't even take their tools away. The family went away on a holiday, and this thing followed them and completely trashed the caravan that they were staying in. So when I got the call, this was after I got the call, in time after I got the call and I started to be involved with the case, people started to die. Well, people carried on dying, but it came closer to home. And the reason that the lady had gotten in contact with me was because it started to go after her son. Now, demons don't have genders. They're not like me and you, whether you're male or female. But an incubus is said to be a man, or a male entity, because it focuses on the woman, and a succubus is known as a I guess female demon, Lilith being one of them, that focuses on the man. In this case it was an incubus, but for something so violent and malevolent to start focusing on children, it would cause anyone to want to get help. Now, the BBC became involved with this case, and one of their crews wanted to go into the house and start filming her. And I said no, not to. And thank God I did, because if they did, we could have been looking at more lives lost. And another priest and his, apprentice, his helper, went to the house, and I think the apprentice or the helper died. I think of a brain tumor as well, I can't remember. But after I got involved, the family started to die. I think the husband's auntie and uncle were found dead. Strange circumstances in their home. Her father died. She nearly died again. Her son almost died. Her husband almost died. And the case began to affect us when this demon, this devil, I'm not going to mention its name, but I have a picture of it. I had an artist draw it up. This devil started to appear to my partner, and it attacked her in her dreams, in her mind. And it attacked me while I was living in the car. Yeah, I lived in my car. I said that really casually, as if it's an everyday thing, but I lived in my car for 7 or 8 months. Quite a rough time, as you can imagine, but that's when I was still helping people, because just because I'm on hard times doesn't mean you shouldn't help people. You know, everyone needs help. And it climbed on top of the car, and it started rocking the car, and it tried to kill us both in the car when we were up in a place called Whitby in Yorkshire. I think it's in Yorkshire, North Yorkshire. Yeah, a lot happened on that case, and that is the case that has affected us. I believe it's still affecting us today. But a lot of things happened to everybody involved in that case, and unfortunately the case went cold. She was admitted to hospital, and I haven't really heard from him. But I do want to still try to help them, so that case may be something that we talk about again. And I guess one last thing that we'll leave on. One last thing. Several times, or many times actually, I've woken up. It had gotten worse actually when we moved into a homeless shelter. But many times that I had woken up and things, black masses, the demonic sometimes would manifest and wake me by physically assaulting me or just making their presence known somehow. And sometimes I would wake up and it would be face to face with me. Sometimes I would wake up and it would be manifested in the room, staring at me. Sometimes it would scream. Telepathically, it would scream, so I would hear it as if it was in the room, but it was done telepathically. Only happened the other night, actually. And then another night just after that. But I have woken up to a woman, actually, in a dress kind of thing, being stood, and her hair was like Medusa's hair. She was stood by the door. I've woken up and there's been a child-sized thing with this incredibly distorted face on it stood right next to me. And things like that happen. But you know, it doesn't matter how much protection you have. Even the Pope, even the exorcist of the Pope, Father Gabriel Amorth, when he was still here, came under attack. Even saints of the Catholic Church, one of our greatest saints, otherwise known as the Catholic Rose, Saint Padre Pio, was attacked regularly, pulled out of his bed and thrown around the room by the devil himself. So this is why it is so important to have the correct inventory going into battle with these things. Doesn't matter whether you're just interested to get pictures of these things, of ghosts or spirits. It doesn't matter whether you're just going to do it one time. We need to be prepared. So I might do another podcast of how to prepare, how to put on the armor of God, how to defend yourself, things to carry, things to do, places to go, people to see, so on and so forth. But I think for now, this will be it. We're 59 minutes and 10 seconds in, and I think I've been talking long enough. We've had cases of demonic possession, infestation, oppression, vexation, obsession. We've had personal cases, random things that have happened, and maybe a case that's still ongoing, the biggest case I had yet. So I will be back one way or another, and we will go into far more depth into this whole crazy world of the paranormal. But until then, thank you very much for listening. I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope you've learned something, and I hope, if I can, that I've helped someone. And until next time, stay safe. For me, it's good night, and God bless.